What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Xposure podcast. You know, we're all about celebrating triumphs and learning from our defeats. Today we have special guest, Mr. Chidi Okezie, my former Hampton native, well, Philly native too, if we're gonna go there. Philly native, Hampton University graduate, and also Nigerian runner. Tell me a little about yourself. Introduce yourself. Tell us about it.
All right, my name's Chidi Okezie, like she said, Philadelphia native. Came down to Hampton for Hampton University on the track team. Was here since 2011, 2012. Since graduating, ran track for Nigeria, competed at the Olympics, World Championships. That's a little spill.
And he trains all sports. I mean, we'll get into that later. So here at Xposure podcast, we're all about celebrating triumphs and learning from our defeats. When you hear that in relation to your sport journey, what do you hear? What do you think of? What comes to mind?
Just one of my favorite motto, just never give up. Just always like you said, defeat and triumphs. Just when your back's against the wall, how much are we gonna push? How much we're gonna go just to define us as great athletes.
For sure. So how did you start running track? Where did it all start for you?
So funny story. I used to play football, of course, wide receiver and safety. And I started off as a DN and tight end. Then I had a little growth spurt. And he's like, all right, we're gonna move you to wide receiver.
I was gonna ask you where. Okay.
And safety. I was probably like 5'10", 7th grade. Hit 6 foot 8th. But then one of my classmates used to always leave class early, like every Thursday. I'm like, bro, why you always leaving school early? He was like, oh, run track. And I was like, oh, sounds interesting. He's like, plus if you run track, you'll be faster, a fast wide receiver. You could move around on the football field. And I was like, you know what? That sounds like a great idea.
Very valid.
So he was like, we have a track meet tomorrow. Didn't know nothing about track. I know football. So I heard that. I'm thinking we have a track meeting. Show up to school, nonchalant.
Another day.
At the time, like shell top shoes was real popular. So I had my Adidas. And they was like, you got some running shoes? And I was like, nah, we just got a meeting today, right? He's like, nah, it's a track meet, not a meeting. But lucky the track meet got canceled. So
you gotta say, we gonna run in your shell toes?
I don't know if I was gonna run, but
you gonna sit that one out?
I was gonna do something. I was gonna make it work.
Okay. And ever since then it's been
blessings on blessings.
When did you decide track over football? Did you play football through high school?
So funny story, another funny story. So my high school did not have a football team. So we had like to partner with neighborhood high schools, which was like two like rival schools. So I remember track season was always like the priority. And then one year I told my track coach, like, yeah, coach, I'm going to go out and play for a football team. He was like, okay, it's your business. Whatever you want to do, I support it 100%.
Was there a butt in there?
No, it was just whatever you want to do,
okay,
support it. So I'm like, okay. And my mom's like, okay, I can't get hurt because he backing me. So meanwhile, I like defense more than I like offense. We was out there, meanwhile, I was probably like 30 degrees, freezing cold. Since I was tall and I was kind of tall, the quarterback was just throwing Hail Marys every single time I ran a route, just launching it. We probably ran routes for an hour. And that was the day I was like, yeah, I'm not playing football. Like,
I'm not built for this.
There's too many different factors that had to play into with the line got to block, the center got to give the quarterback the ball, the quarterback got to find me to throw the ball right.
Too much.
Way too much.
Too much.
Way too much.
So when did you decide to stay? Is that when you decided to take track serious?
Yep. And that was my 10th grade year in high school. And then from there, I was like, okay, let me lock in.
Okay. So talk about some of the challenges that you faced as a student athlete in high school. Because I feel like a lot of athletes kind of tote the line with typically football or football, basketball, football, track. It's a lot of two-sport athletes out there. So what really, well, you kind of just told that story. Talk about that decision though.
So the decision was, I knew, like you said, there's a lot of two sports athletes. And then where I was trying to go was I was trying to be the best. At whatever I do, I always want to be the best. And in order to be the best, I need to give 100%. So in that decision, because I loved football, like football, even to this day, it's like my favorite sport.
So you still love football.
But track was one of those things like the deciding factor, like, okay, I put in the work, I see results. on the football team. I could put in the results, put in the training, all the hard work. But then, like I said earlier, the quarterback is inaccurate. The O-line not blocking. The offensive coordinator wanted to run the ball 50 times. So it was like those little deciding factors. Like, okay, if I show up on the track, I can run fast, I can run slow, but regardless, it's on me rather than me having to worry about someone else's performance that will impact my life.
Okay. And then fast forward to Hampton University. How did you make that decision? Did you have other offers? I'm sure you did.
So I feel like God has been blessing me. So it was funny because I'll say my ego in high school was like, okay, I want to be the best. In order for me to be the best, I need to go to the best school. So the schools I was looking at was like Penn State, Florida, LSU, Texas, like the top-notch schools.
Power 5.
Exactly. So one of my Hampton teammates, who was also my AU teammate, he was like, Chidi, what school you trying to go to? Named all those schools. He was like, so what those guys running? At the time, I was running like 49, 48 low. They running 44s, 45s. So I was like, I don't know. He was like, yeah, I think you should know what you at least getting yourself into.
Right.
I'm like, nah, I'll be all right. He's like, I think you should look into Hampton. I was like, why? Why should I go to Hampton? He gave me the greatest 1 minute spill ever. He's like, it's a young team. We're building. The team will be molded around you. You'll be like one of the top guys on the team, and that environment will be perfect for you. I was like, all right, I'll think about it. I applied, and then, of course, the Hampton coordinator was coming to like schools in Philadelphia. They came to my high school, and I was just like, yep, it's a sign. I'm apply. I'm gonna see if I get in. Got in, and then
the rest was history.
The rest was history, but the funniest one, so I signed on a 50% scholarship.
Okay.
So I didn't know nothing about school. Like I knew nothing about FAFSA. Had to go to pre-college.
I don't think any of us did.
Nada. I feel like we wasn't educated as youth or sports or as athletes.
Right.
So 50% scholarship, didn't know how I was gonna get the rest paid. I was like, I mean,
I'll figure it out.
It's gonna happen somehow.
Right.
First day on campus, I was talking to the head coach, rest in peace, Coach Lewis. And he was like, we had a long talk. He was like, I believe you'll be one of the greatest athletes in the nation. And I was like, okay, talking good talk. And he was like, do you believe that? And I was like, yeah. He was like, okay, well, it's not that if anybody ever told me anything, it's all my own doing. So I decided to give you a full ride. All you gotta do is go over to financial aid, sign the papers. And this was my first day on campus, well, in pre-college. And I was just like,
okay,
right. All right. Fast forward that year, I made the World Junior team, won the gold medal on the Team USA. So his theory all lived out. So I was like, okay, one of the top freshmen in the nation. Can't complain after that.
All from believing in yourself.
All about just believing.
Talk about that, and I see on your hat, that's one thing you stand by. You still stand by.
Yep, I always got to believe. If you believe, you can achieve. And that's one of the greatest things I ever lived by.
That is a fact. But always trying to believe in yourself 100% of the time isn't the easiest thing to do.
No, it's definitely not. But it's one of those things. It's like I always say, ain't nothing in this world easy.
That is a fact.
So as long as you trying, that's half the battle. Then if you believe in and then trying, you're 75% there. So the next 25 is just pushing forward and not giving up.
For sure. So let's talk about some of your challenges. The challenges you had to go through as a student athlete, whether in high school or college, and talk about how you overcame it.
Okay, let's see. I'll go talk about challenging college. Just dealing with traveling, a lot of traveling, especially like coming from a program in high school where we didn't really go to that many track meets. The track meets was walking distance from our school to coming to college. First semester was nice and chill. Second semester, we're on the road every weekend. And then just dealing with the time management, study hall, commitments and stuff like that was definitely, like I say, a challenge. But I feel like that challenge definitely led me just like the real world stuff, like just being able to know like regardless of what's going on, the world still got to go on, and you still got to get your stuff done and put your ducks in the line.
Right.
Cause
So how did you adapt to that? Because I say all the time, traveling was, to me, it wasn't fun because it's a job.
yes,
It's
indeed.
a job, and a lot of student athletes don't realize when you get to school, there is some fun in games, but when you're on a full scholarship, you're there to be on that full scholarship for whatever you got there for, whether it's track, football, baseball, soccer. But talk about the adjustment, because I know I struggled because we were gone all the time. And it's trying to stay up on schoolwork, personal life, study hall, all of that. Like those things that you mentioned. Talk about adapting to that.
One of the biggest ways I was able to adapt was just having like a system of teammates, counselors who was just able to, like, I don't say navigate, but just make sure we was on the right path. And then, like you said with me, and then being a full scholarship athlete, I knew I had one job, and just that's to be eligible. And I seen a lot of people who like will not be eligible, and then I seen the stress that caused them, and I was like, yeah, one thing, I know I'm smart enough to pass these classes, so all I gotta do is apply myself. And our coaches used to tell us like tips. Hey, make sure you sit in the front row, be attentive, talk to the teachers.
Was that a rule for y'all?
It wasn't a rule, but it was like they suggested it.
Did y'all have class checks?
No. Unless you was on like the bubble. Like some people on the bubble
riding
was
that
like,
eligibility line.
yeah, like the
on the other side.
2.4 people, and it's like, okay, you floating on that line. Hey,
You need to
make sure
you're front row.
Be attentive.
Exactly. Describe Describe an experience or lesson that you learned from being a student athlete that transferred over to post life. I mean, you're still an active athlete, but as an adult away from sports.
Definitely like just something from school that will be the best thing I can say is just like how everything just moves in alignment. Like, granted, at Hampton, we knew the Hampton runaround, and student athletes, we hate it. We try to make our coach do it, and just a lot of little things that we like do not like. I tell people like all that stuff got me ready for the real world, going to like the DMV or moving around, talking to people, and it just gets you that people personality. Like,
it breaks you out of that shell.
Definitely, because some of my friends who at these Power 5 schools who get things handed to them a lot, when we out there in the real world doing real world things, I see them like the shell shock. Like, yeah, why is this person acting like that? And it's like, you got to think this person goes through this 5,000 times a week.
Right.
This is just our one interaction with this person.
And we couldn't stand it during the time.
And we couldn't understand. Like, I still thinking about like just being in Whipple Barn and people going off. And I was like, bro, like it's 8 a.m. Like, why are you going off? Like, I'm just trying to get cleared for class or something.
It. Nothing serious.
But definitely looking at it from like being an adult or looking back at it, it's just that everybody's going through something. And in college, we really don't understand that. And then like in sports, we really don't understand that. So just like going through life, and you start noticing like one of my models that tells people to smile at somebody and then see what happens.
That simple.
Like, it's really that, like you said, it's that simple. Because a lot of times we don't know the face we have on or the energy we're bringing, and then a simple smile could change someone else's energy.
Right, because you never know what anybody's going through.
You never know.
So I'm going to go back to believing in yourself. Now that you're still an active athlete, but let's talk about when you were at Hampton, when you were still a college athlete. Let's talk about some of the off the track issues that you dealt with, and how did you get through those?
Definitely say like personal life things. Like, of course, we're there for athletics, but then, have like the social life and just being like a member of, like, I don't say society, but just being a person.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that was definitely like an issue with me trying to like navigate between partying all week like a college athlete or a college student, not a college athlete, and then
be easy.
Training like a college athlete.
Be easy.
But like just that simple line, because I had some friends who were athletes at one point and then wasn't athletes no more. And I had to like straddle the line, like, okay, they are still my friends and I still want to hang out with them. But
They still around.
there's things they're staying up to 2, 3 a.m. playing video games, partying.
We can't do
When
that.
it's
We
like
gotta be
I
up
got
at
practice
5.
at 5 a.m. Like, all right, it's Friday. I got a track meet. Those conversations definitely was like off the track issues. Like, hey, I like hanging out with you guys, but I got to go at like 8. You say, oh man, we just starting at 8. Like, yeah, no, I see y'all. See
I'm
y'all
gonna
on
have to miss
Wednesday.
this one.
But just that was definitely like a challenge I had to deal with, just being able to have my social life and my athletic life.
For sure. So how and when did you become an Olympian?
How and when? So in 2021, supposed to be 2020, but 2021, it was at Nigerian trials. Oh, not Nigerian trials. It was a track meet they had after Nigerian trials. So I'll just paint the picture of the whole scenario. Let's say Nigerian trials was on the 21st. We didn't qualify at Nigerian trials, so they put 2 more track meets on just so we can qualify in our relays. First attempt, we missed it by like 2 seconds, I want to say. So then from there it was like, okay, I don't know. But then it was like, all right, we're going to put 1 more track meet. And it was like the last chance on the last day of qualifications. The middle of the meet, qualify, ran at the time the African record, Nigerian record. It was pretty sensational, as I'll say. Ran the mixed relay. I think we ran like 3:14. But it was pretty special.
Was that intentional? I mean, everything's intentional, but
It was one of those things like, after trying so many times, it's like you said, sometimes we get down on ourselves, but I just had to be like that glimmer of hope, because after trials, I was supposed to come back to the US. All my US friends came back. My flight was booked for, let's say, the 22nd. I talked to the president of the AFN, the Athletic Federation of Nigeria, and he was like, hey, Chidi, you have an opportunity to qualify for the Olympics, but you got to make a decision. You're either going to miss your flight tomorrow and we will get you a new flight, or you just leave tomorrow and then your hopes of qualifying for the Olympics is done. And I was like, all right, so when will I get this ticket? And he was I don't say he messing around, but just playing around like, you'll get it. You just got to know if you're going to miss your flight. And I'm like, man, this is not no cheap flight. Like,
exactly.
I need to know. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to believe that everything works out. God got me. Say my prayers and go out there. Cause I'm going to leave here with something.
I mean, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yes, indeed. And glad we definitely qualified on the last whim. So
what was going through your mind during that thought process?
Run. But all seriousness, just all the things that I went through from the 2016 Olympics, missing the qualification by 0.24 seconds, to 2020, the Olympics being postponed for another year, to COVID. So just like all my hard work for the last few years, this is the moment. If I do nothing, I just make sure I put everything on the line. Just give it my all.
Let's talk about staying afloat during COVID.
Staying afloat. It was,
I feel like we all struggle. We all struggle, but athletes specifically, because things were on ice.
Things
literally for a minute.
Definitely was on ice, and it was one of those things that was, I like to say, it was uncertain. A lot of things we never seen it before. People joked around about COVID, but it was like, it's real.
Taking folk out left and right.
I remember I was on campus practicing, my last day practicing on Hampton University campus. It was like March 5th, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like 2 days before NCAA Nationals going on. I'm looking at articles from like Stanford girl upset because her president told her they're not going to Nationals her senior year. And I was like, oh, this is different.
Serious real quick.
2 days later, not even days, I think it was like hours later, the whole NCAA started coming down like, nope, everything's getting shut down, no nationals. And I was like, oh, they shutting down nationals. That's big. And I was like, you know what? That's not gonna affect me as a professional athlete. Then I seen Rudy Gobert situation. Then I was like, oh, hold on. The NBA just went on pause. Wait a minute. And then literally maybe a few weeks later, that's when he said the postponement of the Olympics. And at that time, I was feeling pretty good. But let's say my teammates kept me afloat. The people I was training with definitely was, say, the motivation. Just being able to see them going in at it just with me and knowing like the bigger picture. Because during the COVID time, a lot of my friends were retiring. We're like, yeah, I'm done. Like, it's the sign from God to retire. But I took it more so like a lot of people are dropping off. This showing who's tough, the tough from the weak, and who wants to thrive a little bit more, who want to push when things get rough.
Mm-hmm.
Being that from Hampton, you know, we always going through something tough. So
Always.
that was just like, oh, I was ready. Just like, all right, just give me the opportunity to shine, and I'm gonna show you what I can do.
And look at you now.
Look at me now.
So let's talk about your resilience. You basically said that in a lot of different times of your life, from being both a high school student athlete, a college student athlete, and also professional. Name or talk about a time that specifically tested your resilience to like the utmost.
I'll probably have to talk about when at the Olympics. Probably was a time I was tested the most on just, I almost gave up and just like, yeah, this, I'm done.
Let's get into it.
So
It sounds juicy.
it was juicy. So we got training camp, not in Tokyo yet, but days before we about to go to the Olympic Village. You know, my first Olympics, I have my two teammates, 100-meter runners in the room with me. I'm playing, I think the game was Sega Olympics game, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just geeking like, bro, I'm playing Olympics at the Olympics. Like, what is life right now?
Right.
And I'm running 100, messing with the 100-meter runner. It's like, yo, I'm about to break Usain Bolt record. I'm like, somebody come see me right now. Like, pick up the sticks. Y'all don't even need to know how to play. Just play me.
Right.
One of our head coaches came in. He was like, meanwhile, time frame is 11 p.m. So he came in the room with this serious look on his face. Meanwhile, he's a jokey coach, so he's always making fun. He came in the room, was like, we may have a dilemma. I'm still playing the game, so he's not talking to me. I just ran 9.4. Like, come on.
Right.
So he was like, did y'all get tested? And this was through the thick of COVID. So we thinking like he's talking about our COVID test. Because in Japan, we had to get COVID tests every morning before breakfast and before dinner. Like, faithfully before going into the cafeteria, we had to get a COVID test. We had to show like the card, oh, we just got COVID tested. We had the apps. We had a whole lot of things about COVID testing. So when you said, I was like, oh, I did my COVID test. Like, I'm okay. Fast forward, he was like, no, I need 3 out of competition drug tests, urine or blood. And I was like, oh, I didn't get any. So this conversation does not apply to me because I'm not in that category.
Right.
And he was like, no, it applies to every single athlete that runs for Nigeria. So I'm like, oh, okay. So how can we get this situated? It's 11:30 at night. We're supposed to be going to the village tomorrow at like 8 a.m. What's happening? He's like, I don't know, but I'm gonna get back to you. I was like, they're not ruining my Olympic experience. So continue playing the video game.
Like nothing ever happened.
Nothing ever happened. Went to sleep, try to brush it off. Wake up in the morning, it is chaos in the hallways. Like, people running back and forth, trying to figure things out. We had like 24 athletes that qualified for the Olympics. Out of 24, 10 of us was deemed ineligible. And out of 10, we had some medal hopefuls, some NCAA champions, people who was ranked 5th in the world. Like it was heavy. Let's put it like that. So those late, like let's say I was there for 10 days. Out those 10 days, 8 of those days was spent in meetings. Just going around in circles, people saying, oh well, this is what we can do. Then we come to find out they're just talking. It was nothing for us to do. We call
80%
in
of your time.
like 80% of the time. Like every meeting we went to had the same outcome. He's like, oh well, it's nothing for us to do right now. Only thing we could do is like you guys should have did. I'm like, nah, we shouldn't have did anything. Like us as athletes, we are not in control of our drug testing. We're not in control of the systematics of what the administration is doing.
Right.
Only thing we can do is run. Like that's the only thing that we could have in our control.
Right.
So with all that, like they're coming at the athletes like, oh, you guys are to blame because if you would have did ABC correctly, and he was like, no, we should go back and look at the Carfax, like who is really to blame. And then we found out that the administration that was in office at the time of the Olympics was only in office for like a month. The people who were in office before wasn't doing anything. Like their jobs were to get athletes tested, put athletes on a pool to get tested, a lot of different things they were supposed to do, and he wasn't doing. So once they left, the new administration was like, oh, well, it's nothing for us to do. It was the old administration that was to blame. And through that whole process, it was just like, it was definitely heart-wrenching, like running by yourself to qualify for the Olympics. So it's like, okay, we get some competition. We gonna make some noise.
Right.
Get to the Olympics. Days before you about to compete, they like, oh, well, we don't know if you're gonna be able to run. So still practice and still be ready. But as of right now, you can't run. And the way they was talking was like real inconsiderate, the best way to use. And some of the meetings, I said some things, made some people cry. It was very.
You said something?
It was some very intense moments. Like, yeah, it was because one of the former, like, I won't say goated, but a Nigerian Olympic star who was in administration was like trying to downplay the whole situation. Like, oh yeah, it'll be okay. Like, you guys will make the Olympics again. It'll be okay. Like cheer
everybody
up.
makes the Olympics.
And I was like, granted, she made the Olympics 5 times. So I was like, all right, I'm not gonna say her name, but person, you qualified 5 times, right? Out those 5 times, how many people was on the same teams from your first time to your second time, the second time, third, fourth? She couldn't say anything. I was like, remember your first time making the Olympics? She was like, yeah, it was an amazing experience. Like, take a look around this room.
This is our experience.
This is our first experience. Like, being in meetings for hours on hours. Being within COVID. So we had a lot of COVID restrictions. Like, typically at the Olympics, you could roam free, be a tourist at the town. With your credential, you can visit anything for free. This one, it was like, you're supposed to be at gate A, gate B, gate C. If you enter at gate D, you could get arrested. Like, it was that serious. Like, they were not playing with nobody at the Olympics. Like, the funniest situation, like, I laugh about it now, but at the time it was pretty tragic and sad. But I had my headphones in majority of the time just because I didn't feel like hearing nobody talking.
Right.
So I turned my Bluetooth off just because let me turn my Bluetooth off just because time to relax, take my headphones out, turn the Bluetooth off. A siren came off my phone, like a real live sound, like, wheep, wheep. I looked at my phone, it said Bluetooth turned off, location can't be tracked. Turn location back on, and it's a countdown going on with my phone. The amount of panic I received in like 5 seconds because I didn't know what was going on. Then I realized we had geo trackers on our phone to make sure we stayed inside those realms.
Did y'all know that?
I don't know to the extent, but in the airport coming into Tokyo, they like, make sure you download this app, make sure this app stayed on, make sure your Bluetooth is on, because they was like trying to make sure you wasn't in contact with someone with COVID. So in that aspect, it was pretty funny because I'm like, bro, they really got us. They really watching us. Like,
yeah.
But I'll be watching this too. It's like in a big pandemic and making
I was about to
sure
say, in a situation like that, you kind of have to.
had to. But I definitely remember, luckily, one of my teammates, Chuck, he definitely kept me level headed in a lot of situations because I'm a very calm person, real nonchalant. A lot of things I have like mini checklists, like this real tiny things. Just okay. So one of my things for the Olympics was I need the Olympic phone. Like that's the only thing that will make my day, my experience at the Olympics better. Because every year, every Olympics, they drop like a engraved Samsung with the Olympic rings on the back. And I was like, that's all I want. I get that.
I'm good.
I don't care if I don't run. Like I'll be okay just to say like I was here. One of the officials was trying to hold off and like, oh, you have to run to receive a phone. And that kind of took me off. So it took me kind of to a place I didn't want to go, especially after they saying, oh, you can't run, you can't get a bib number, you can't do all these things. Then I was like, nah, I'm leaving here with something. Like, and the lady was like, oh, you got your credential. That shows that you're an Olympian. I was like, I'm not walking around 24/7 with a credential around my neck.
I want that phone.
Like the phone engraved in the back. It's a small things that give me joy. Right. So receiving that after conversation with a few people, I had to make some phone calls to make sure like things got situated.
I'm getting that phone.
I received the phone and then I was happy. Happier than I was the day before.
That's always a blessing.
Yes, indeed.
Being better than yesterday.
Definitely.
So you said better. A lot in that story that I want to highlight. Let's talk about first and foremost, being a student athlete. There's a lot of lack of knowledge.
A whole lot.
A lot of lack of that I feel that could be avoided if somebody just had a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Point out a few things as a student athlete that you wish you would have known. Or you wish somebody would have told you. Too much to name.
I'm going down a list. It says definitely just about credits. Like just knowing a lot of people now with the transfer portal. Credits don't always transfer. Knowing that can definitely help a lot of people out thinking like, oh yeah, I could just go to any school and just be okay.
Set you up. Like
definitely set you up. I almost transferred once, but then I had to think about a lot of different scenarios. I was like, okay, let me
might put you back.
It's not that bad here. Let me just relax and go through it. But also just this is so much. But just thinking about the best things is classes. Teachers and like the grades that they try to give is not set in stone. And like sometimes it's okay, like you can talk to your teacher to see what work you can get done after, let's say, the grades went in. And knowing that after the fact, like, okay, like my GPA could have been a little bit higher, graduated 3.0. So that's that. But knowing how teachers operate and like teachers are humans too.
And not every teacher is the same.
And not, like you said, not every teacher is the same. I had some real rough teachers who stood by their word, but me talking to them definitely just like, I ended up with like a C+ when I know for sure.
But they say C's get degrees.
C definitely got me a degree. So
how did you learn to do that? Because a lot of student athletes, we are trouble when it comes to speaking in different areas. Just knowing to have that conversation with your teacher, or even having the confidence to have that conversation with your teacher. Because I feel like a lot of us would just let it ride.
Yeah, I was in a predicament. So I set goals for myself after my sophomore year in college because my GPA, I was in study hall and I wasn't supposed to be in study hall. So I was like, okay, this not happening again. I don't want to spend 6 hours of my week in this computer lab. So then my grandfather passed away and I was like, I'm getting me a 3.5 for him. Like I'm dedicating everything to him. So that was my mission. So when I was talking to like some of my academic advisors, he was like, yeah, if you talk to your teachers, you can definitely get more work, extra credit or something to boost your grades and stuff like that. So I'm like, And I felt like I was a pretty confident person in my abilities on the track. So I was like, okay, if I just say like I had a track meet and use this energy that I had on the track in the classroom, I was like, the worst thing they could say is no. So with that mindset, I always went into it like, if I don't ask, I'll never know. And then that's what I did my first few years. And that's when my GPA was the way it was. I was like, all right, I'm smart enough to get it changed so I can just get a on the next test. The next test will come. I'll get a C plus. I'll get a B minus. I'm like, all right. Next test, I got the next test. I'm gonna study for the next test. Next test, I get an F. And it's like, all right.
Something didn't work.
Okay, something's not adding up. Then I started, after that year, it's like, okay, let me start really applying myself. Let me start asking teachers different questions to know, like, instead of studying the entire 15 chapters, let me ask the teacher, like, what chapters are you really going to highlight? And just like, I don't say working in different ways, because a lot of my friends were pretty smart. So like they was like engineer majors and stuff like that. So
That's a plus.
and that with running track as well. So I just used to like piggyback off of them. Meanwhile, I'm not saying my major was easy, but it was easier considering what they had to go through.
Right.
So just listening to them, like, okay, so you go to your teacher office hours to talk to them. And he's like, yeah, and he could be sometimes give us the, like, not the test, but the blueprint. And I'm listening, I'm like,
which might be the test.
And I was like, you know what? Let me start doing that. Granted, it wasn't for none of my major classes, but like the economics, the stats, the business laws, the things that I really want to apply myself to, which typical athletes in my major was like, all right, well, my major class is sports marketing. If I got an A in sports marketing, I'm okay. My mindset was more so I wanted 3.5. So anything to get to a 3.5, I'm doing it.
And you did just that. You said what you graduated with?
3.0. My second semester, or my junior and senior year.
That's still above average.
Yeah, I snapped those years. I had like a 3.6 one semester, 4.1. Like I went on.
Your first 2 years, were they rough?
I would say the first year was pretty rough because lack of information, took some wrong classes. Not really wrong classes, but classes I really didn't need to take at the time.
Yeah.
Got a D in the class. Then that class, they was like, well, in order for you to stay eligible, you need this class to be one of your electives. So I was like, all right, let me just put it as an elective, because it's like, yeah, it's not an F, so you still pass. So that you still get the credit points for it. And I was like, okay. Not really knowing too much how it will affect my GPA in the long run. But I was just like, I'm not taking no classes again. Like, I'm definitely not taking that class again.
Yeah.
So definitely had like a 2.5, 2.4 my first year. But one thing that definitely helped out was pre-college.
It did. And it's funny you said that, because my first semester of college, I had straight C's. I had 1B. And bouncing back from that took me the rest of my 4 years in college.
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely understand that.
So kids, make sure you're on top of your schoolwork ASAP as soon as you get there, because it's not easy trying to come back.
It's definitely not easy. I know a lot of people who only had one semester at Hampton as well. That first semester could definitely
make or break you, depending on who your coach is too.
And some careers. I know I could count on two hands how many track athletes at Hampton alone that I know personally.
Listen, I had them straight C's. Got calls in my coach's office like,
this ain't it.
Graduated from high school with a 3.5. Like, what is this? Like, the adjustment isn't easy though.
Yeah, I tell people
school class, like college classes versus high school classes. I mean, high school you don't really gotta do much.
You show up, you get a C.
Do a little 30 minutes of homework. You might have an hour project once every semester, but that transition,
it's different. Like, teachers not really focused on you. Just like, hey, I said what I said. Now it's on the syllabus.
For real.
Pop quiz tomorrow. You show up. It's like, wait, pop quiz. Yeah, it's on the syllabus, page 4.
Did you look at the syllabus? The syllabi?
Been there a lot of times.
I did not. Right. So who is Chidi outside of track?
So Chidi outside of track is, I'll say, a fun person. Just
Not to laugh.
Yeah, she gotta giggle sometimes. But I'm a coach. So a lot of people don't know I coach tennis. at Kickinton High School. Last year was my first year. We made it to regionals. We did pretty decent for the first year.
Shout out to you, coach.
And then also train all athletes from field hockey, soccer, basketball, track. If they want to move their body, I can move it. Like we gonna get it right. If you want to get speed, stronger, faster, like
So how important is it to you to continue to give back to the student athlete community?
it's everything to me. Just being from growing up in Philly, in my high school, we didn't have a track. So I was training on the sidewalks, won states in high school, to seeing that and then like the impact my coach had on me and just building my character, my personality. I want to be able to be that mentor for the next generation, giving them all the things that I didn't know. Like, okay, well, you telling me I can't eat a box of pizza before my track meet? Like, these are the little things I try to give back to the kids because,
They don't have that.
like, who knows, like, the next big thing out there?
The next Chidi.
Like, I don't say next Chidi because it's only one Chidi or one Chidi
Respect.
Okezie. But
Respect.
the next great athlete.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Because anything is possible. Because I wasn't always a star. I wasn't always fast. I wasn't always the way I am today. But if I could look back at it and be like, and if I could see myself, like say when I was 13 or 15, and be like, oh yeah, you'll do everything you ever achieved, you ever thought you would. I'm like, oh no, you just messing with me. Like, I run 50 seconds in the 400. Like, I'm like 50th in the state. But looking at it back at it's like, okay, my coach always say like I never gave up. I always was at practice. I missed like 2 days of practice in high school. And like just hearing those things back to me as an adult or an older athlete, it's just like, okay, if I give the next kid a blueprint, like, listen, all you gotta do is put in the work. You may not be the fastest, strongest, tallest, but if you have heart, you can't teach heart. You can't teach the grit. Yeah, we could push and try to make these kids dogs, but it's all about what they have inside. And I just try to shine light upon the kids like, listen, just keep going because you never know what happened.
Absolutely. You said something about nutrition. Being a professional athlete, please talk about the importance of nutrition as a student athlete, not just now as a professional. That starts now.
It started yesterday actually. But just I always like I heard something, I forgot who said it, but we gotta treat our bodies like cars. Like, and a foreign car, like let's say a Bugatti, a Ferrari, or
Maintenance
something
is expensive.
like very expensive. And you're not gonna put water and oil in your car for gas. Like you're gonna put the highest grade because that's what the car needs to operate.
Right.
Just like our body. Our bodies are what's the best way? It's $1 billion vehicle.
Trillion.
So if we out here putting our these toxins in our bodies, and I always tell people like, you don't got to eat clean, like or 100% clean, but eat cleaner than yesterday. Like have some greens, eat some fruit, drink some water. I know people who don't drink water. Like I know people who don't eat fruit, who don't eat vegetables. And I was like,
these athletes?
Yes. And it's just like, like I know one athlete, he was like, I never ate vegetables growing up. And I said, what did you eat on a daily basis? He was like, oh, McDonald's or some Chinese food, some fried rice. And I was like, bro, like that's why your body make is the way it is. Like you need some apples in your diet. You need some broccoli on your plate. Like just, I always say like your plate should look like a rainbow. Some colors on there. It shouldn't be white and brown. You should have
carbs,
like
right.
You should need some fruit, some veggies, and water. Some people know they drink Gatorade and soda and think they're
a lot of sugar in Gatorade. Okay.
Very.
A whole lot of sugar. They didn't tell us that either.
They didn't, but definitely growing up, definitely water was my go-to. Just because it's an abundance of
for
it.
you, right?
It was abundance of it. It's just like, okay, I'll grab a water bottle, drink the water bottle may finish. I go to the tap, fill it back up, go back outside and continue what I'm doing.
Keeps you flowing. And still now.
Exactly. That's all I really drink is water. Water, maybe some orange juice, some lemonade, time to time, but
Not on a regular.
I gotta see through
Everything
my
in
juice.
moderation.
Everything.
Moderation. So reflect on your support system as a student athlete and how that has transferred over to being a professional and also outside of sports.
So my support system is key. Me and my family in Philly, my friends I made at Hampton, all throughout the world, like I realized how big of an impact they played in my life. Just being able to give me like the little motivational words to keep going. We see you, good jobs. You don't really think of it in like the times of like when you're down, but like looking back at it, looks like, man, like these people were really here when in 2012 or 2010, like, and they still here, like they still motivate you, and they lift me up when I can't lift myself up. So that's always great whenever, like, say if I have a good race, and for me, only time I have a good race when I win gold. So my mom used to always say, like, you're so hard on yourself. Like, didn't you just run, you win or whatever? And I was like, yeah, but I have a different goal I want to achieve. Like, I don't want to be the best in this area. I want to be the best in the world. And in order to do that, I gotta push myself to a different caliber. I gotta go to heights I never went before. So of course, yes, winning this little meet or this running this time is okay.
No such thing as a little meat.
Mm.
Mm.
So pushing me and like it's giving me that motivation to know, like, okay, what if I run fast or if I run slow, they'll still be there beside me. Rather than the people who only like you when you're up. So that support system, a core support system, was definitely key for me because college wasn't the best experience. We had some ups, some lows. Even professional wasn't the best. Had some ups and lows, but throughout it all, they stayed there, messaged me,
That support system is
contact me,
key.
and just was my backbone when I couldn't have my own. So
I like that. My backbone. I couldn't have my own. So to wrap us up, Sport Exposure is all about exposing our journeys, exposing our experiences, exposing the things that we went through as student athletes to inspire the next generation of student athletes. What do you want to expose for our student athletes?
So one thing I'll expose, I can see it on my hat, just believe in yourself. Just believing in yourself is just half the battle of obtaining any challenge, any obstacle in your life. Because once you stop believing, that's when everything starts to fail. But if you continue to believe, you will definitely achieve something greater. So real simple, just you gotta believe.
You have to
You have to.
at all times. But thank you so much for taking the time to stop by Sport Exposure Pod. That was amazing. Y'all catch us back on the next one.